Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's top stories. David Depape found guilty of attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer. More on Depape's charges and potential sentencing coming up. An arrest made in the death of a Jewish man. The man, a pro-Israel demonstrator, was allegedly struck and killed at a rally in California. President Biden again highlighting the differences between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist regime, one day after calling the CCP leader a dictator. What he's saying as he seeks to boost ties with Indo-Pacific countries. A verdict in federal court today. The man charged with attacking Nancy Pelosi's husband in their San Francisco home last October has been found guilty. Here's more.
A federal court jury found 43-year-old David Depape guilty of his two charges: attempted kidnapping of a federal official and assaulting an immediate family member of a U.S. official. The jury resumed deliberations on Thursday. Depape was accused and charged with breaking into former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco home and attacking her husband.
What this guilty verdict on all counts sends is a clear message that regardless of what your beliefs are, what you cannot do is physically attack a member of Congress or their immediate family for their performance in their job.
Police body camera footage showed Depape striking Paul Pelosi over the head with a hammer last October, while Nancy Pelosi was still Speaker and away in Washington, D.C. During a rebuttal, prosecutor Helen Gilbert said the defense had made a false distinction between Nancy Pelosi's politics and official duties and that Depape didn't differentiate between the two. Depape pleaded not guilty, but during testimony on Tuesday, he admitted to attacking Paul Pelosi with a hammer while trying to carry out a plan to hold Nancy Pelosi hostage. Depape also faced further charges, including attempted murder in California State Court that carries a potential sentence of 13 years to life in prison. Together, he faces a maximum of 50 years in prison. The court decided he will remain in jail until his next hearing for a status check on December 13th.
And here's a recap of some other national headlines from today. Police and protesters clashing outside the Democratic National Committee headquarters last night in Washington, D.C. That was during a demonstration for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. The DNC headquarters had to be evacuated. Democratic Congressman Brad Sherman says the protesters were violent and attacked the police with pepper spray. The representative said, quote, pro-terrorist protesters attacked the police and tried breaking into the building. He also thanked the police who stopped them and for helping him. About 7 members of Congress were reportedly inside the building when the attack took place. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressman Sean Casten compared the incident to the January 6 Capitol breach. He questioned the protesters' intentions, saying protests have to take place within reasonable boundaries. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia says he won't rule out leaving the Democratic Party as he weighs a potential presidential run. Here's the senator during the interview with CNN.
I've never considered myself a Washington Democrat. I've been a very independent person. You have a D or an R by your name or an I by your name. It shouldn't identify who you are. I vote independently, and I've always done that for 40 years. So we'll see.
Manchin announced last week he will not seek another term in the deeply red state. It came as a blow for Democrats hoping to hold on to a narrow 51-49 majority in the Senate. In July, he stoked speculation of a third-party presidential campaign during remarks at a forum held by a centrist group at a college in New Hampshire. For more details of these stories, please visit ntd.com. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis requested certain evidence for the Trump election case to be protected after witness videos leaked Monday. She expects the trial to be underway through Election Day next year and could possibly stretch past the inauguration in 2025. Here's NTD's legal correspondent Arlene Richards.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody.
A Georgia judge is protecting evidence. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee granted DA Fani Willis's emergency request for a protective order. Her request came days after video testimonies of defendants who took plea deals were leaked to several media outlets. But her request didn't end with just the videos. She also wanted protection for
Just essentially anything and everything that's turned over that wasn't already public or wasn't already part of the defense file was going to be held under seal.
Attorneys for the defendants are permitted access to the prosecutor's evidence so they can prepare their defense. At a hearing on Wednesday, the parties came up with an order they could all agree on. On Thursday, Judge Scott McAfee signed an order that limits the protection to sensitive materials. In a separate filing, Willis also asked the judge to send one of the co-defendants to jail because she says he's intimidating co-defendants and witnesses, and that this is a violation of a bond order that keeps him out of jail. Harrison Floyd, the former head of Black Voices for Trump, is one of 3 co-defendants who allegedly pressured election worker Ruby Freeman to admit to election fraud. Trump allies accused Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss of scanning multiple fake ballots. In the 23-page motion, Willis gave examples of how Floyd violates the order, saying he's posting intimidating messages on social media, many directed at Freeman. For example, on November 14th, he posted an audio recording of Freeman and stated, "Does this sound like Ruby Freeman is being pressured?" In another post, he said Ruby Freeman's job was the reconciliation of ballots. She wasn't even supposed to be on a scanner. Willis says because of Floyd's intimidating posts, Freeman is receiving threats, and Floyd is obstructing justice. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
A scathing report coming out of the House Ethics Committee. It claims to have overwhelming evidence that New York Republican Congressman George Santos broke the law, concluding that he cannot be trusted. This as Santos is facing a 23-count federal indictment. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more on what the report found and the next steps for the congressman.
After a months-long investigation, the Bipartisan Ethics Committee finds that Republican Congressman George Santos knowingly violated a number of ethics and criminal statutes. Many of those crimes that are referred to in this report are actually the same crimes that he's facing a total of 23 federal charges for right now. The report reads, Representative Santos sought to fraudulently exploit every aspect of his House candidacy for his own personal profit, accusing him of using campaign funds and his personal affairs and lying about his background to win over donors and constituents. The evidence consists of more than 170,000 pages of documents and testimonies from dozens of witnesses. The committee is now referring this evidence to the Department of Justice, and Santos has responded to this report, calling it a politicized smear. He also says he's committed to finishing out this term, but he will not run for re-election next term. Meanwhile, some of his House colleagues, even Republicans, are eager to boot him out. Many Republicans are calling on him to resign, and there is an effort underway right now to hold another expulsion vote to get him out of Congress. They did try to do this in the past in the House of Representatives. However, there were some Republicans who protected him from being expelled on the grounds that this report had not yet been released. Now that it has been released, we'll see if this next vote of expulsion turns out any differently. That vote could happen as soon as the House returns from their Thanksgiving break. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Now, an arrest has been made in the death of a Jewish man who died after alleged altercation with a pro-Palestinian demonstrator in Thousand Oaks. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the story.
The Ventura County Sheriff's Office arrested 50-year-old Loé Al-Nalji Thursday in connection with the death of Paul Kessler following an altercation at dueling protests in Thousand Oaks. Al-Nalji, a computer science professor at Ventura County Community College, has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, and he is held on a $1 million bail. According to authorities, Kessler, 69, died as a result of injuries he sustained from a pro-Palestinian demonstration demonstrator wielding a megaphone at the November 5th rally. Video footage shows Kessler lying on the ground suffering from a head wound. He was transported to a hospital where he died the next day. The arrest follows initial uncertainty about whether the incident constituted a hate crime. Officials said that though an arrest was made, anyone with information or who attended the event should still come forward and share video footage with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Christina Corona, NTD News, Los Angeles.
President Biden seeks to assure Asia-Pacific allies that the U.S. is a more reliable trade partner than the Chinese Communist regime. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more from the APEC summit in San Francisco.
As President Biden is seeking to deepen ties with Indo-Pacific economies right here at the APEC summit, he's again highlighting the fundamental differences that exist between the United States and the Chinese regime. Here is him addressing a CEO summit today on Thursday. Watch.
We have real differences with Beijing when it comes to maintaining fair and level economic playing field and protecting your intellectual property. We'll be firm, standing up for our values and our interests.
And President Biden asked that businesses as well as countries can count on the U.S. as a reliable and secure partner. And that echoes with Biden's calls for countries to rally behind the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific economic framework, which is often seen as a more reliable alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And all this comes after President Biden said he'd raised human rights issues with the head of the CCP and also called him a dictator. Watch.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is the guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
And here in San Francisco, where the APEC summit is taking place, groups that are persecuted in China by the Chinese Communist regime, including practitioners of the meditation practice Falun Gong, told us that they have this message for the Biden administration.
You're taking innocent people, putting them in labor camps, and torturing them for their beliefs. We can't stand for this, and the Biden administration should take action and speak strongly about this.
The group's peaceful demonstrations are expected to last until the end of this summit. Back to you.
As world leaders meet, protesters also gather in and around the city. The Bay Bridge going to San Francisco was temporarily closed after protesters calling for a ceasefire and the end of U.S. military aid to Israel blocked the traffic this morning. According to the sheriff's office, about 80 protesters were cited and then released. We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. A judge sides with a professor who said he feared the investigation. The professor challenged his college's DEI mandates. Weather concerns at the Las Vegas Grand Prix race. Drivers share more on the current situation. A pair of mountain lion cubs rescued. The Oakland Zoo in Northern California takes them in after they have lost their mother. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. In a fight against mandatory diversity policies, one professor receives help. A federal judge takes a step in overturning diversity mandates in California colleges. NTD's David Lamb reports.
One professor fights for his freedom of speech against a California community college. U.S. Magistrate Judge Christopher Baker weighed in on Tuesday, recommending that Bakersfield College be prohibited from investigating, disciplining, or firing a history professor. Damon Johnson, a history professor, sued the school over its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, also known as DEI. Johnson has been at the college since 1993, and he claims college administrators villainized his group and launched an investigation against him. He says he no longer talks about political issues, fearing investigation or termination. The judge wrote that while the state's goal of securing educational opportunities for students is appropriate, the promotion of DEI in public universities doesn't give it the authority to invalidate protected speech. Chancellor Sonia Christian said the regulations don't implicate the professor's speech rights because they are aspirational rather than restrictive. Bakersfield College isn't the only institution that faced freedom of speech lawsuits. Several professors also sued their colleges this year over statewide regulations on teaching DEI concepts. An attorney who represented those professors said,
So the California Community Colleges, the Chancellor's Office adopted this DEI rule last year that requires professors throughout the state of California to adopt, affirm, acknowledge, and advance DEI principles in the classroom. And this would include endorsing concepts like intersectionality and anti-racism that are highly contested concepts. The state of California, the community colleges can't force professors to teach and preach what the state wants them to do. They're individuals with their own First Amendment rights.
For the recent Bakersfield case, Magistrate Judge Baker recommended a district judge to prevent the professor from being fired or investigated based on his social or political speech, as well as academic writings. In California, David Lamb, NTD News.
Now we head over to the racetrack for some news on the upcoming Vegas Grand Prix. NTD's Carlos Reyes has more on some possible weather concerns.
Mercedes Formula One drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell believe cold temperatures will be the biggest challenge at this weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix.
I think the biggest challenge is going to be the temperature. I think this is one of the coldest, probably the coldest race that we have done in a long, long time. Normally we're in hotter climates, you know, so yeah, this is chilly. But I raced when I was younger. I raced in cold climates like this, like in Scotland, around the UK. But I think it's going to it'll be interesting this weekend.
F1 is returning to a new track in Las Vegas after more than 4 decades. Russell warned that the track could be 15 degrees colder than the circuits they are used to racing on, which could affect the grip, tires, and engine.
We've scanned the circuit, but it's only when you get out there you truly recognize it, how the tires are reacting with the cold temperatures. You know, it's probably, the track's going to be about 15 degrees colder than everywhere else we race on an average, so that's going to be reacting totally different. The engines are going to be running much, much colder. We're never really used to being under the limit in terms of the temperatures.
A few weeks ago, Red Bull's Max Verstappen clinched a 3rd consecutive driver's crown, but now Hamilton is looking to take 2nd place from Red Bull's Sergio Perez, who is currently 32 points ahead. The fight is also on for 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship, as Mercedes are just 20 points ahead of Ferrari. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
A pair of cubs were rescued by a California agency. They were left orphaned after their mother was hit and killed by a car on a freeway.
The California Department of Fish and Wildlife rescued and transported 2 very young orphaned mountain lion siblings to the Oakland Zoo on Tuesday.
So the 2 little girls on intake look pretty good. They're a little bit quiet. They're definitely dehydrated. They're definitely thin. They've probably been starving since they left their mom. But overall, no big injuries on physical exam.
A female mountain lion, believed to be their mother, was hit by a car and killed on Saturday near the Bay Area community of Hillsborough.
So we'll do some genetic testing to confirm that indeed she was their mother, but it's pretty likely. They were found a stone's throw about 100 yards away from where her body was found.
The zoo's veterinary hospital staff conducted a health examination on both female cubs. The exam included virus testing, parasite treatment, and blood work testing.
And then we'll carefully monitor them. We're checking kidney function, liver function, electrolytes, red and white blood cell count, viral testing, genetic testing, everything that they need to be restored to health here at the Oakland Zoo.
Orphan kittens such as these remain on average for 8 days in the zoo's ICU. Once cleared, they are moved to a holding area at the zoo's vet hospital for weeks or months until the cubs are given a proper home.
To wrap up the night, let's explore a house in a cave on the side of a cliff. What began as sketches on a bar napkin turned into a home overlooking the natural wonders of northwest New Mexico.
This is Cocopelli's Cave, or Coco's Cave. It's inspired by 12th century Puebloan architecture. It's nestled in a cliff valley of a special type of sandstone, a formation known as Ojo Alamo, located in northwestern New Mexico. It all started in 1982 when geologist and Naval Intelligence Commander Bruce A. Black was drinking at a bar with a pair of miners, the Zink brothers. He first sketched on a napkin plans for a home in a cave. In the following years, the Zink brothers used hydro drilling and blasting to carve a donut cavity in the sandstone, and eventually a main opening for a door and a balcony with a vista overlooking La Plata River Valley with a 300-foot vertical drop to the valley floor. By 1994, Mr. Black had the place furnished and comfortable for living. After his son got married, he made it into a bed and breakfast, as it remains today. Coco's Cave features a circular stone hearth made of local sandstone with an ornate fireplace. Modern comforts are available thanks to electricity and other utilities run through a 100-foot shaft drilled into the cliff top above. Now, if you want to book a stay at Coco's Cave, more information is on their website at cocoscave.us.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.